So 1.1 continued, and you write today's date. We've already done that. So today we're talking about intersections of lines and planes. Can anybody tell me what it means for something to intersect?
Crossways.
So like crosses ways, right? So if you intersect anything, they basically are going to, like, in a sense, they're going to touch, right? They're going to intersect at that point. Okay. So this first one on the top left here is one. It's a line intersecting a plane, and it says one intersection point. Remember, we talked about this yesterday. If it has dashes, what does that mean? Does anybody remember?
We didn't talk about that.
We didn't? I thought I mentioned it yesterday. It means if it has dashes, it means it's going through it. So it'd be like if I have my pencil's the line, my paper's plane, it goes through the plane. Okay? And the dashes are the part, see how it's part of the pencil you can't see because the plane's covering it? That's what it's saying, is that line's still going, it's just behind the plane. The dash is behind it, okay? So what you do, if you see this, that's where it intersects at, can't see it, and then you can see it when it comes out of the bottom. Kind of like, if I push it far enough, you can eventually see it again at the bottom, okay? All right, so, and it's, the way I always think about it is how many people have shot bow and arrows before? A few people in here? When you shoot an arrow through a target, how many times does it intersect it? Once. Leaves one hole, one intersection point. Okay? So it means it's going through it. The next one is all points intersecting. So now we have a line, a plane, and we have a line that is just laying on top of it. Okay? So it's intersecting at all points now. Everywhere that line goes is on that plane. So you see how the pencil is touching the paper? Like the whole pencil's touching it? That means it's intersecting at every point on that pencil. That pencil, and so that line, if it's laying on top of it, every point on that line is also on the plane too, because they're touching like that everywhere. Okay, it's just laying right on top. The next one is one intersection point, and that's where you just have two lines that just cross ways. Okay? Right there where they cross is the intersection point. So if I was going to mark it here, I'd take note that the intersection point is right there. And a lot of times you'll see, so say they have a letter right there. That's a point right there. But what's wrong? Like, what does points normally have? A dot. This is the only time a point will not have a dot, or they might not draw a dot, is where two lines are intersecting. Okay? So if you see two lines intersecting, just know that is talking about, like, that's a point there, even if there's no dot. Because it's intersection of two lines, it creates a point. All right? And the last one is two planes intersecting. And when two planes intersect, they create a line. Okay? So basically, like, if you were to look at the floor, if you looked at every square, little square tile, each one of those, think of them as a plane. And they're intersecting each other, they're touching. And what are they forming in between them? Lines. Okay? If I pulled all these tile apart, they wouldn't have all these nice lines going everywhere, would they? Okay? If you just had one tile by itself, you don't see these lines. But when you push them together, now they create a line with them. Same thing with two planes. All right? So now let's look at this. What kind of shape is this? Well, it has squares, but it's a cube. Okay? All right. So I don't have an actual cube. Closest thing I have is my Kleenex box. What kind of geometric figure is this? It's 3D. Rectangle's 2D. What do we call this one? Rectangular prism. Okay. So a cube is all squares. Rectangular prisms at least has some rectangles on it. All right. So I'm going to use this as a reference. So how many faces does a rectangular prism or a cube have? 6, right? So each of these, think of them as these are each a plane. There's a plane on top, on bottom, and all 4 sides, right? 6 planes that intersect to form this geometric figure. So if keep that in mind when you're doing this. So let's answer the first one. Name a point that is collinear with points E and H. And we already talked about it, but we said that collinear means that they're points that lie on the same line, right? Now with these, I do recommend using highlighters or colors. It makes it a little easier to see. But we're talking about points E and H. So E and H. If it's collinear, it means it's on that same line with it. So this is the line that E and H are on together. What point's collinear with them? J. So I'm going to say point J. Are there any other points that are collinear with those two? No. Okay. Next, name a point that is not collinear with points E and H. So, not collinear means that's not on the same line. So which ones are not on this same line right here? Which points? I is one of them. Is there more? That are not on this line, on this maroon line?
Yes.
Which ones?
A, B, C, D, G, F.
Every other one is not on that line, right? So A, B, C, D, I, F, G. So let's write all of them. It only asks for one, but let's mark all of them. Points A, D, B, I, C, F, and G. Okay. All those points are not collinear. Okay, they're not on that same line together. That's why I'm saying I like to use the colors because it makes it stand out which ones go together, and you can easily look at the rest of them. Next, name a point that is coplanar with points D, A, and B. And we said coplanar are on the same plane. So I have points D, A, and B. What plane is that? Is that the front, sides, bottom, or top? Top. Because D, A, and B are all on that top. So we're talking about the top plane there. So I'm going to just highlight that whole top. Make it stand out. What point is coplanar on that same plane with D, A, and B? Points I and C. Because if you look, all these are on the same plane. So I and C fall in that category. Okay. Next, name the intersection of plane AEH and plane FBE. So I have A, E, and H. Where's that one at on the plane, on the cube? The front, the back, the sides, top, bottom? The front. Good job. This is the front. So I'm going to highlight that. And then F, B, and E. So F, B, and E. So that's going to be this one on the side, right? So do you notice how it's basically this front and this side, right? Notice when they come together, what do they form when those two planes intersect? What is that called? A line, right? So another way of looking at it is we are basically, if we think of our room, think on a bigger scale, we're in a rectangular prism right now, aren't we? The floor is the bottom, ceiling's the top, we got our front and our back and our sides. Okay? So we talked about the front and the side. So if I was to run over here and look, and like this is our front right here, right? The front of our cube, this whole wall. And then this is the side, this whole wall. When they come together, this is the intersection point right here, or the intersection line. See how it creates a nice line in the corner? If I could somehow separate these walls out, would there be a line anymore?
No.
No, but when they're pushed together, it forms that whole line. So remember, when planes come together, they make that line. How many points do we use to name a line?
2.
2. So when we look here, we got to find the line that's created. So we know they create this line right here, right?
So A, B.
So what's the name of that?
Line A, E.
Line AE. Whoops. So it's A, E. What's the symbol for line? Nope, not the cursive L. That's the creeper letter typically. It's a line on top, and what does it have on each side?
Arrows.
Arrows, because it's a line. It goes on forever. So it says sketch plane ABC and line DE intersecting at one point. So basically draw them. My recommendation is don't try to grasp all of it at once. Do one at a time. Okay, do one little section at a time as you're doing this, and it'll make it a little simpler. So the first thing they want us to draw is plane ABC. So I'm going to do each little drawing in a different color. So plane ABC. So let's just draw a plane. Remember, it's kind of like a rhombus looking thing. It's like that. Now it has plane A, B, and C. Are those points or are those creeper letters? Points. If it was with a creeper letter, how many letters would be there?
One.
Just one. Okay. Good job, class. So, points we know have dots. So I just need to put 3 dots on that plane. They didn't specify where the dots have to go, where the points have to go, so I could put them anywhere. As long as they're on the plane, and then I label them. A, B, C. If you don't label them, you will get them wrong on your homework. So make sure you do label them. All right, so we got our plane drawn. Now let's draw a line DE intersecting at one point. Line DE intersecting at one point. It's line DE going through it, so it's going to go through. And at some point, it's got to become a dashed line and then come out the bottom. Okay. If you want to draw a horizontal, you can draw it horizontal. Just make sure it has the dashes and then turns back to a solid once it gets to the other side.
Does it matter? Let's say I put it on the seat. Let's say if I put it on the seat. No, I'm talking about no.
So that's a good question. So should you put it on the C or not? Only if they share a common letter. You see how one has ABC and one has DE? They don't have a common letter, so I wouldn't connect them. I would keep them separate. Okay, good question. Now, what does a line need to have on each end?
An
arrow. Arrows. So make sure we draw the arrows. Whoops. And it says line DE. We already mentioned none of them are common, so we're not going to share any points. But I do need to put just those 2 points, D and E. You can put them anywhere on the line. If you wanted to put them on the dash part, if you want to put it towards the bottom, towards the top, doesn't matter. Just D and E anywhere on that line. And now I have plane ABC and line DE intersecting at one point. This one is a little bit easier. What are those symbols above M and X tell me that they are? Array. Remember, array is always just got one arrow. It's just one arrow pointing on. Okay. So the first one I'm going to draw is, I'm going to sketch ray MN. Literally, you can just draw an arrow. Doesn't matter what direction it's pointing, but just one arrow. Now I need to label it. Which one of those letters is my starting point? M. How do we know M's the starting point? You're right, but how do we know it? Perfect. It's the first letter in the name of it, right? The first letter in the name is always the starting point. And does it matter where I put N on this? No. Just put N anywhere. All right, now I have MN sketched, ray MN. Now I need to sketch ray NX. Do you notice anything different from this one, from the last one?
No.
Perfect. They both have N in it, right? They share a common letter. This one has N. This has N. If they ever have a common point, they have to touch at that point. Okay? So don't draw another ray with a point N on it and another point N. There can only be one point N on there. Okay?
So you can start from there and go somewhere else.
Exactly. So since they have to share a point, and notice on ray NX, that's our starting point, right? So that means I need to start at point N and just go another direction and draw a ray. And then does it matter where I put X on this orange one? No, we can just put it anywhere. Because it's just a trailing one. So always remember that if they have the same letter, that means whatever it is, like if they're two lines or if it's a ray in a line or whatever, they have to start at that same letter. Okay? I'm going to warn you, like there is one on the test that's going to be like that. And a lot of people miss it because they draw it all separate instead of drawing it all together. Okay? So like if you're drawing 5 things and they all share, say, letter A, point A, they all have to somehow touch at point A. Okay? So don't mix it because of that. All right, this next one. Sketch plane K and line M intersecting at how many points? All points on line M. All right, so sketch plane K. Here's my plane. What is K? What kind of letter is that?
Creeper.
It's a creeper. How do I know, class, that this is the creeper letter? It's by itself, right? If you named a plane with points, how many points would you use? How many, class? 3. If I'm naming a line, how many would I use? 2. Ray, how many? 2. Segment, how many? 2. All right, good job. So it's a creeper letter. So am I going to put a dot next to it? No. Just put it somewhere. A lot of times on a plane, you'll see the creeper letters just in the corner. It could be anywhere on the plane, but typically they put them in the corner. Just always remember, like, creepers kind of hang out in the corners. They kind of hide out, right? I know it sounds stupid, but it's just a way to remember it. All right, then we have line M intersecting at all points on line M. So since it's intersecting at all points, it's just going to lay right on top of it. So we're literally just going to draw a line sitting on top of it. Don't make it extend outside the edges or anything. Just keep it all inside the plane like that. And then line M. Is M a point or a creeper letter? Creeper letter. It's just by itself, right? So remember when we do a creeper letter on a line, just put it somewhere by the arrow with no dot. And that's it on this one. Last one. Sketch plane M and ray NB intersecting at B. Go a little quicker on this one. So I have plane M. Says that M is by itself, so it's a creeper letter. I'm just going to throw it up there in the corner. And I have ray NB intersecting at B. How many points is it intersecting at? 1. And what's that point called? Yep, just B. Point B. Okay. So if it's intersecting at 1 point, is it going to be solid the whole way, or is it going to have dashed lines? Dashed, because it's intersecting. It's like the arrow going through it, right? But so we're going to draw it. Ray NB intersecting at B. So it's going to be kind of like that, right? And solid. Now this is a ray. So what does each end have?
Arrows.
On both ends?
Oh no, at the starting there's a dot and at the end with the arrow.
So I have a dot on one end and an arrow on the other. It's a ray. What does the starting point have to be? What letter? N. Because N's the first one. And it's intersecting at point B. So basically if I had my pencil and paper, where the point that it intersects at, right there where it goes into the plane is that point. So on our drawing, basically,
Where your solid line stops.
yeah, exactly, where it goes from a solid line to a dashed, that's going to be the intersection point. So this is where it intersects, and we've got to intersect at point B. So that's where you have to put point B. So sometimes they do tell you where to put the points. Any questions?